Massively overpowered. Did kind of like a follow-up to 3.7. I wanted to read it for you guys, talk a little bit about it. It says Star Citizen Q&A live stream touches on mining caves, quality of life, tweaks, and more. And they're referring to the Star Citizen Live that I've missed. In fact, I'm probably going to watch that sometime today and give my 2 cents on the Star Citizen Live. But it says it's Q&A time for Star Citizen's developer in the most recent Star Citizen live stream that took place. What did you guys think of it? I haven't been able to watch it yet. Like I said, I had a busy week, so I definitely have that on the agenda to watch today. Let us know what you guys think over here in the comments. But it says, as one would expect, this Q&A session was all about the update made to the sandbox in the Alpha 3.7 and its various related features. Many of the questions focused on what the new features of 3.7 will evolve into. That's great. That's great. Snowfox says it was good. He appreciated it. I like to see those types of questions. When the community starts asking like, okay, great, we're getting the groundworks down. We want to see what you guys are thinking about. We want to get the inside scoop on the developers and where they're thinking that this type of like the groundwork's going to go to, like how the game mechanics are going to evolve. Like we talked about harvestables today. We talked about how harvestables kind of sets the groundwork for farming, which is an interesting facet of the economy, and how it's important to have those talks, and how some people will try and shut it down and say, oh, I don't want to talk about it yet, because if we do that, then it's going to make the game take longer to be released and blah, blah, blah. And that to me is just like, I don't buy into that argument. I understand where people are coming from. I just don't buy into that argument. I think that a game that wants to be like a game with no limitations should always talk about evolutions in the game mechanics, in the gameplay features coming to it. I think there should always be talk about further evolving the very roots of these gameplay features we are now seeing. It's important for the progress. It's important for the game. It's important for us to get the game that we want, that kind of limitless kind of gameplay that we're all looking for in this game, which is why there are so many people backing the game. So it's important, and it's great to see that in this, at least from this author's perspective, to see that people who are citizens stepping up, asking questions about what these new features will evolve into. So that is super positive. I love seeing that. Such as word about harvestables being used for crafting and to keep your character well fed. We can get into a whole, we'll probably have a community talk about that, about, food and the use of it with the economy. I don't want to get into it on this video because I will talk like 3 hours about it. How the multi-tool will get, how the multi-tool will get more functionality, and how there will be more missions tuned for multiple players. The multi-tool, Buzzkiller and I, who's a friend of our community, Buzzkiller went in and tried to get into a ship, and it was a Connie, and it wasn't his own, and he used the torch with the multi-tool, and I got that posted in our community tab, where you can see physical actual damage to the skin of the Connie. He couldn't get into it, but then we got a lot of really cool feedback from our community saying that you can actually get into other people's ships through side doors or through doors on certain types of ships. This was gameplay that we did not know was available for the most part, and it's good to like inform the community about these types of things that are happening, because some people don't even know that's in the game. So that was really cool that we found out about those types of gameplay mechanics in there that some of us were not aware of. How there will be more missions tuned for multiple players, as well as an indicator. I love the new mission sharing in the UI that mentions a recommended player count for any given mission. The Q&A further touches on improvements to finding caves by increasing their spawn density by many orders of magnitude, as well as having a radar signature. Now we're talking about having more areas where you can find these, like basically more caves, essentially, is what that said. Now, for there to be more caves, we can get into a talk about SSOCS, but we did that last week, so I won't get too into that. Donnie says, a while back, you used to be able to use a Scourge railgun to blow doors off, but it took 3 people and 3 whole full mags of railgun. Took too long, but it was doable. That's great. It was broke, but probably not like that anymore, says Donnie. That's cool. That's cool to hear from Donnie saying that. I was going to do a few posts about it too, says Invisible. Cool. Mission sharing is bugged. I tried sharing missions with Enoch all day long and it never worked. Well, I actually had a couple good positive experiences with mission sharing myself. So that's interesting that you've got some bugged issues. So that's something that I think will continue to be improved upon, though, Erad. So that's interesting. I'm curious to see if you have any of that content on your channel, because I would like to see that as well. Hormagas saying mission sharing worked for him 100% of the time, and this is the interesting thing, that we're getting like mixed feedback on this patch. We're getting some people that are able to, some people that aren't, and I really I don't know exactly what to make of it, because I'm here. It's almost like day and night experiences with this 3.7 patch. Are you guys feeling that as well? Like, I'm hearing a lot of people either like all on one, like going, oh shit, everything's bugged and I'm not having a good time, or all kind of like everything's great. Erad, of course, is a great content creator and he balances it out. So like, I'm not saying Erad is doing that. Erad's really kind of very, very open and a wonderful content creator, so go check him out as well. Shout out to my friend Erad. Let's see here. There are also details for future plans for mining, such as more variation for rocks and mining lasers. Awesome. That would be great, as well as the ability to refine mine material. Those updates are further down the line, but not by much. That's encouraging. The stream also offered a nod to quality of life updates due in Q4, such as fixes to quantum travel. Yes. Adjustment to make interdiction less frustrating. I said that was going to happen. That's going to happen. All these interdiction issues right now, this is just like, they need the data that they're getting. It's very valuable to them. The data that they're getting from all these interdictions is really valuable. That type of game mechanic, that kind of gameplay feature, they're collecting all data in every form and facet about interdiction right now. And then as new systems come online, you're going to start to see the law system start to evolve. It's going to be harder to interdict in UEE space if you're a player. I'm sure the NPCs will interdict if you're breaking the law, and you will see that. But as far as the interdictions that you're currently getting in Stanton, I think overall within the upcoming patches, you'll start to see being more of a rarity, or at least a lot less than what you're seeing now. And as new systems open up like Pyro or Nyx, and these outlaw systems come online, you'll see a lot more PvP type gameplay mechanics and a lot more interdictions happening there. Hopefully we can stop a lot of the bugs that we're receiving in Stanton with the interdiction. I think we will. I think that's kind of right around the corner. Personally, that's my speculation though. Working on making destroyed NPC ships reliably drop cargo. Okay, great. Most of these features appear to be on deck for Alpha 3.8, though the devs also want to put in some tangible content in the patch as well. Donnie says, I will say as a backer, first, developer second. Every time I go into live or watch other streams, the one conclusion people have come to is you never know what you're going to get, so it's always different instead of the same. Plus, I've noticed player behaviors are beginning to change with how they interact with the game. People are starting to roleplay and test VoIP more. There are a lot of things that are shifting around from the normal routine players, which I think is good. Yes, and I love, as a content creator, the VoIP. I love the VoIP, man. I'm using VoIP. I love to get into the character. I love to create that content. I think it's good promotion for the game. Every time I'm taking the time to edit these videos where I'm doing the in-game gameplay, people are really responding positively to it. It's good. It's overall a fun experience for me to make that content, and it's fun for me to see the reaction from those that watch the content. And I know that it helps the game, and that makes me feel good, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something that helps the community, that helps the game gain more steam. That makes me feel good. I like to do that. Yeah, the VoIP features are great. Yeah, the VoIP, like the actual communication in game has gone up tenfold. Let's see what else. The entire Q&A can be found right here. And then, like I said, I'm gonna watch that sometime today. I didn't get that in last Friday, so if you bought the land, that's a great question. You see this comment down below here? If you bought the land, do you own the caves underneath? Ooh, these new questions, right? Are mining rates serverable? Do earthquakes exist? I don't think they're going to have earthquakes personally. And do they change the cave topology? I don't think they're going to even get involved in earthquakes till way down the road. Even if they do, Cloud Imperium still has to work on orbiting mechanics and those types of things before we even talk about earthquakes. But good questions from this T guy, because he says, if you bought the land, do you own the caves underneath? Ooh, man, that's a really good question. I wonder how often that would happen, though. Like, that's probably going to be a rarity. As more caves come online, though, you never know. Are the minerals found there consistent with known formulation? If a rock falls in the cave and no one hears it? Oh, I think the first question is probably the most relevant and important question, which is, if you bought the land, do you own the caves underneath? That's interesting. That's interesting. So really, really nice follow-up piece, 3.7, that Massively Overpowered did. They kind of did a piece that I covered last week where they interviewed Sean Tracy. There was like one good question in that particular interview I liked. You guys can go check that out on my channel. For the most part, they kind of threw softballs at Sean. I think it was more a promotional thing. But I think overall, like I said, 3.7 has been primarily positive for me. Again, if it's talked about in Spectrum, a majority of players agree it should be a thing, then, well, yeah, right. My point is Spectrum is more useful than one might think, respectfully speaking. Yes, Spectrum in itself, I think, needs a good cleanup in terms of, like, it needs more positivity injected into it. And one thing, my criticism of Spectrum is, while it's great that the developers are using Spectrum to get ideas from, I do notice the very loud kind of voices in there that generally aren't the main consensus, the general main consensus. So you have a lot of loud voices in Spectrum that, in my opinion, aren't always the way that the game is perceived by average gamers. Well, I notice a lot of times it's very difficult. It seems like it's difficult for people who have opinions on the game to even speak up, because sometimes they feel like if they speak up, they're just going to be swatted down in Spectrum. And so I've got some constructive criticism for Spectrum. I like the way that it's set up. I like the design of it. But I think it needs a lot more help in terms of, like, you know, helping out new players, and being more open-minded towards people's, you know, opinions or lack of knowledge in Star Citizen. I will see a lot of people on Spectrum that are very new to the game that don't understand a lot of it because they haven't been around as long as some of the veterans have, and then they get completely smacked down. And I think that there has to be more moderation on terms of that, you know, where you know, the guy might have like 5,000 posts and be an uber Spectrum poster, and just because he's got all these amounts of posts doesn't make him an expert at all. It just makes him very talkative sometimes. And you'll see this guy with 5,000 posts on Spectrum come in and then just smack out like somebody who just recently joined, for the simple fact that the guy doesn't have a lot of creds to his name in Spectrum. So like a lot of that needs to be, you know, moderated, where like moderators are looking at like those that have been around a while, speaking up and being vocal a lot, and saying, hey, why don't you play it a little bit easier on newer players? Because you're going to take out their interest for the game based upon your behavior. And so, like, those are things that I see in Spectrum that could be improved upon. But for the most part, at least Spectrum has a stable basis on which to get your votes ranked up. But that's also, you know, like Erad and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, weren't we, Erad, about the voting system and how we think the voting system's kind of borked? You know, because like essentially what ends up happening is if you get like a large content provider of Star Citizen and they want a question raised at the top, they just tell their entire fan base to like vote it up, and then so like some questions that are legit get pushed to the bottom and aren't even seen. So that is something that I see as well that needs like maybe a new way in which to kind of look at what questions should be asked in Star Citizen live streams. I know Jared tries the best that he can to get as many as he can, but I know those that rank at the top usually get the most attention, and I've seen plenty of good questions that aren't even getting the attention that they deserve. And again, you know, this is just constructive criticism for the game. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I thought this was a nice little follow-up piece that they did here, and I'd love to see your comments on it, and I will see you guys on the next vid.